Call the meeting to order. Before we do anything else, if there's anybody that's here for what had been announced as public hearing for No Dogs Left Behind, that was canceled for tonight. Just so people know.
So I'd like to make a motion.
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion to revisit the tabled motion last month that Bill made that specifies that we have a public comment at the beginning and the end of every planning board meeting starting tonight.
is there any discussion of that?
Are we gonna hold people to 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Well,
I would say the town board, I believe, allows people to 3 minutes and then allows people to come, after everybody has their 3 minutes say, then people can come back and have another say.
And to speak to the issue at hand.
Speak to the issue. If there's more to say.
But the public comment period could be on any issue,
Okay.
beginning and end of.
Yep.
The public comment period
Right.
doesn't have to pertain to what's ever on the agenda.
Okay,
Yeah, my motion was
no,
to make it consistent with the town,
whatever.
so just to have the practices be consistent. So I'd have. to look at those.
Well, some open public comment.
And I did, I did the agenda at 1:30 this afternoon and I got it out there, so. I
Thank
got
you,
on.
sir. Thanks for that, Mike.
Do you want to formalize your motion, John?
Well, I think we should, Bill, I think said it pretty good in the last meeting.
Yeah, I made the motion to follow the public comment practices of the town.
Yeah, I thought that we-
We accepted that, not tabled that. No, we
No,
tabled.
we tabled it.
oh, John wasn't.
So is that motion on the table? Yes. Is there a second?
So I made the motion.
No, I made the motion
Last week.
So you.
Oh, I'll second it.
Betsy, are you hearing us?
Yes, I can hear this.
No further discussion? Are all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
But it passed. So we're open to public discussion then,
Discussion or
or
simply?
comments,
Comment.
comments,
Fine.
public
Yeah.
comments at this time. With a 3-minute limit.
Okay.
Has the attendance
Yeah,
been passed around?
Yep.
So if you're going to make a comment, we'd like to know who you are and where you're from. And then you've got 3 minutes. And it will be part of the record.
Toby Irvin, Irish Settlement Road, Canton. As long as you're aligning yourselves with procedures and so forth, I think it's good time for me to make a comment. According to Robert's Rules of Order, if you present an agenda, then you're obligated to vote on that agenda as the first item of business, that you accept the comments that are on here, and you cannot remove items from that agenda once the vote has been taken. So there's been concern lately about what the agenda means. Robert's Rules of Order states very clearly that you accept this at the beginning of the meeting and you follow it to the end. You do not add items in the middle of the meeting. You do not subtract items in the middle of the meeting. So I would recommend that you consider something in that order to put your agenda out on the public view on the website, at least a day before your meeting, and follow Robert's rules.
You must know, Mike, whether we were obligated to follow Robert's rules on this.
I think you'd make it on that. The only thing I would take out of that would be adding and subtracting. You can make a comment at the beginning of the meeting that we're adding number 2, item F to the agenda, and we're taking off number 3. That's the only thing I don't, other than that. We have to do it at the beginning of the meeting.
Essentially, there'd be a bullet point for approval of the agenda. Well,
Yeah,
and the changes to agenda can happen then, and then the board would have to obviously vote to approve the agenda. Changes, if changes would happen.
Hasn't been done that way since I've been on board.
no,
But we can certainly,
Yeah, I'll make a note of that.
Well, if we have. The agenda would have to be published at least 5 days in.
5
advance.
days.
And that piece, sometimes that agenda will get public notice, but it won't necessarily hit the webpage. That's.
Are there any other public comments?
Yes,
Okay,
Margaret Milk, 33 James Road, Hampton. I have a petition to offer to the board. This is not an oppositional petition. I am presenting the Canton Town Planning Board with a petition of over 100 signatures of people who support the concerns addressed in the land use document that was sent to the board on July 5th, 2023. These people agree that the concerns need to be addressed before a permit is issued, no dogs left behind. People who signed the petition are concerned citizens of the town of Canton and of St. Lawrence County. The county-wide concerns affect the local veterinary clinics, rescues, volunteers, fosters, adopters, emergency personnel, as well as social media representation of Canton and our area. This is part of the democratic process that community members be heard. Over 100 citizens have taken the time to voice their concerns to you by signing this petition. Among them, board members of the Potsdam Humane Society. This process of sharing, contacting others, and attending meetings has given us and other members of the public the opportunity to participate in local affairs in a positive way. And what I am submitting actually is a copy of the petition because we are continuing, it's an ongoing petition.
okay.
And
If you have that, we can enter it in our record. Thank you.
that's a copy of the land use document followed by the petition.
Okay. Do you get
Yeah,
this?
I'll give it to Jenny. I don't know what she does with it.
And this also.
Are there other comments?
Question on the petition.
Yeah.
Is there some sort of signature threshold that any sort of impacts what we do at the planning board? Do you have any?
I have no idea.
Gotcha. Just in general, this is a 100 signature petition that is in support of the land use document that was submitted on July 5th. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
okay. My name is Ruta Ozos. I'm at 405 Mead Road here in Canton. To better understand the planning board's responsibilities regarding site plan reviews and special use permits, I read through chapter 7 of the town law manual for planning and zoning. Article 3, section 7-16, the site plan review, reads that it is a tool used to ensure that proposed development property fits and conforms to the character of the neighborhood. Site plan review also protects against adverse impacts on neighboring properties that may result from development. Further, site plan review is subject to a seeker review. In Article 3, Section 7-17, special use permits states, unlike a variance, a special use permit does not involve deviating from what's allowed in the local zoning code. Rather, a special use permit adds another layer of review for certain uses allowed under the town's local code to ensure that the community character and other public health, safety, and welfare concerns are protected. Also, special use permits are subject to seeker review under the special use permits. Article 3 of the Town Law Manual tasks the planning board to take into consideration how the planned usage of a property will affect the community and requires due diligence to protect the environment from foreseeable hazards. Our planning board does more than say yay or nay to building a new structure. And for that, I thank you all.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I do. Kathy Schwede, County Reports Team, Rensselaer Falls. So I'm also going to quote from the Camden Town Law Manual, Chapter 7, Article 1, which says, through planning and zoning, towns have the authority to plan for and regulate the development of and use of real property for the community's health, safety, and welfare. The basic premise of planning and zoning balances the well-being of the community against individual property interests. So this clearly states that the planning board should be taking into consideration the well-being, health, and safety of the community as it plans and regulates. One of the many concerns raised about No Dogs Left Behind is the impact it will have on animal welfare, since this is an area already severely underserved with respect to veterinary care, and the addition of NDLB dogs will put further strain on the care available. NDLB has attempted to address this by including a veterinary clinic in its application. In the minutes from the July 10th Town Plan Board meeting, and I quote from the minutes, Ian McKellar asked about the planned veterinary services as noted on the application. And then it says in the minutes, Mr. McKellar noted that if a veterinary clinic were to be open to the public, the facility would need to be owned by the veterinarian offering service. Based on the discussion, it was determined that the veterinary service part of the application would be removed. So 2 points. The current application still includes a veterinary clinic in its site plan note. It was not removed as agreed. And second, assuming that was an oversight and it will be removed in a corrected application, the impact on the community relating to the lack of veterinary services for the NDLB dogs, as well as community dogs, has not been addressed. And then the second point is under the community connection section of the current application, one of the connections listed is, and again I quote, current agreement / contract with SUNY Canton to provide animals for their facility to use with students, volunteer, and internship opportunities. That is a misrepresentation of the facts. There is no current contract or agreement with SUNY Canton. And I have a copy of the termination of the memorandum of agreement of the memorandum of understanding between No Dogs Left Behind and SUNY Canton, and it's dated March 8th. I have a copy here. And it says, Jeffrey, to ensure animals' health and safety, please accept this letter as a 30-day notice to formally terminate the agreement between SUNY Canton Spring 2023 Veterinary Science Technology and No Dogs Health. And submit that and that letter.
Was there a reason stated for the termination?
Not in the letter,
Just the animals' health,
yeah.
to ensure animals' health and safety.
So SUNY Canton had a problem with animal health,
But it says in the letter.
so that's the concern. And that's why they terminated the memorandum.
And that letter's from beginning of March.
But that, you know, the application still has reference to that connection. That's what that is.
Yep.
Piece just want to add there was thank you. There was reference to chapter 7 from the land use law. It's chapter 7. Just want to make sure because there's a lot of chapters and
Right, that was.
things can get confusing. So chapter 70 is our land use regs.
Yeah.
Any other public comment? Then and we will progress. The next on the list, well, we can introduce everybody here too. I'm Ian McKellar, I'm the chair of the planning board.
Bill Myers, member of the planning board.
Eric Barr, member of the planning board.
Jill Coda Casterly, alternate.
Siggy Bar, alternate.
John Casterly, member.
Betsy Hodge, also member of the planning committee.
Bill, do you
Yeah, I
want?
Bill Buchanan, I'm energy counsel to the town.
Anybody else?
Who else is on Zoom?
Marsha Arnold.
No. No man, Muner.
Well, we can progress. to
Did you have a question for me?
No,
Took me a minute to unmute.
trust me, it took me a minute.
Just doing introductions.
Okay, yes, I live in Canton and I have concern and my husband also, and we have concerns about No Dogs Left Behind. That's why I zoomed in.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will move on to the overview of the solar project from Grassy Grove. You're on.
Great. If you want to start setting up, I'll introduce us and then we can go from there. So I brought a business card to the board. Is this a good area for us to set up the board to visual?
I'll turn it away.
Try not to get in anyone's way, but no promises. I'm Liza Sheps. I'm a business development manager at Nexamp Solar. Nexamp Solar is the owner of Grassy Grove Solar East and Grassy Grove Solar West. I'm joined tonight by Evan, who is representing our engineering partner, Colliers, for this project. Really high level introduction of Nexamp, who we are, what we do, and then we can get into the overview of the projects. So Nexamp was founded in 2007 by 2 U.S. Army veterans based out of Boston, Massachusetts. We have since grown to have a nationwide presence, having solar and storage projects in 15 states and counting. One unique and important distinction between Nexamp and other developers is that Nexamp owns and operates our facilities for the lifetime of the solar project, having our own construction management group, asset management groups, and operations and maintenance groups. With that, it is not our business model to permit a project and then sell the project, or construct a project and sell the project. We are the long-term owner and operator of the projects. In Nexamp in New York, about 8 years ago, we became very active in New York State and have remained so. We have over 40 projects in New York State currently operating, with another 30 in development and construction. We are the largest owner and operator of community solar projects, which these 2 projects are proposed to be. What community solar projects mean is that local residents keep their current electricity provider. Everything remains the same there. Nexamp plugs these community solar projects into the existing electrical grid and therefore feeds clean green energy into the existing grid and receives a green credit, an incentive to do so, which Nexamp passes along to residents that subscribe to the project. So as far as these projects, we have 2 5-megawatt AC community solar projects that are proposed at this location, located at 268 State Highway 310 in Canton, in the rural zoning district, therefore permittable by issuance of a special use permit and site plan review. One high-level introduction that I want to make about these projects is there's 2 projects, which is a little confusing. There's the East project and the West project. The East project is fully approved by the utility National Grid We have the full interconnection study. We've made the deposit on that and we have everything lined up. The west project is lagging a little bit behind that. We're already very deep in the process. We've received preliminary studies and are having the final interconnection study due back to us from National Grid in the next coming weeks. For transparency purposes with the town, and then also so that both can be considered together for seeker and then for ag and markets as well together, we have designed and submitted both projects in parallel to the town to be reviewed in parallel concurrently, but two separate projects here. So the east project, we have everything set up. West project, we don't yet have full interconnection approval on. They are both single axis trackers, which means that a lot of the solar panels that you see on the side of the highway or whatnot are fixed tilt, which means they run in rows from east to west and have a stationary panel facing south. These projects are single axis trackers system, which means the panels are in rows from north to south and the panel face rotates throughout the day to track the sun. So with that, I can help hold that if it's tricky.
I think my easel broke.
I can be a good easel, so that's perfect.
Just use this too.
Is it done?
Any chance we could turn the computer so the camera on the computer's facing the speaker? Oh, yay. That would be great.
Just ask, Betsy.
Okay.
Perfect, a little bit,
I'll
I
just
can
tip it down a little.
that'll fit my 5-foot frame here. I can hold it if you want to
Yeah.
get into it.
Let's see.
And
Or
just
the
for
chair.
reference, the site plan was shared via email as well.
She's
I
made
have
a,
it. I've looked at them.
Sneak in there and then
That's
you can
okay.
speak to it.
Can hold it.
Okay,
And so again, my name is Evan. I'm a New York State PE with Colliers Engineering. One point before I dive into it, I did want to highlight what Liza said about in the solar industry, a lot of what happens is that the folks who take it through site plan approval doesn't necessarily mean they're the folks that are going to own it when it's
Yeah.
built.
well aware.
So that's a unique thing with Nexamp. So that's in itself, that's very favorable. So yeah, so currently this is right off 310. I'm sure you all know where this is, about 5 minutes from here. It's about 93 acres. It's currently used for agriculture purposes. There's a couple wetlands on site, and these are federal wetlands. We have a certified wetland biologist who goes out and there's strict guidelines you have to follow. So we delineate all the wetlands, and they're labeled on the site plans. Let's see. There is a existing residence on the house, but this is part of this area of the site's not being developed. Let's see, and I'll show you the overall site.
Just for clarification, is this east or east?
what we're showing is both projects.
Yes.
The 93 acres sounded like.
Yep.
Mhm.
So this is the overall site plan. And on my left, this is the east project. And over here is the west project.
So they share as much as they're allowed to share for National Grid in that they're two separate projects, but they share the access road entrance here. And the access road goes back into the site and then turns to go into each fenced area. For National Grid and NYSERDA, they need to have two separate fenced areas, two separate equipment pads, two separate equipment, everything else needs to be separate. So for that reason, you can see the fence line here is for the east project and then there is for the west project.
And the access road, there's only one access, as Liza said, and that'd be constructed with the east project. And we designed this to be conservative. So the west side is something that's still being ironed out with the National Grid to confirm if they have the capacity. So we designed it as if it was full capacity. So it can't get bigger is what I'm saying.
It can get bigger or
Cannot.
they can now? Okay.
So the maximum for, based on NYSERDA, in New York State, the maximum community solar project size is 5 megawatts AC. We have that confirmed for the East project. We've applied and are going through the study process for the West project, and we've designed this at 5 megawatts AC with all conservative assumptions. So what we have before you today is the maximum, everything. It could only get reeled in from here. It couldn't expand at all.
So is this why you separated and have two 5 meg projects?
Exactly.
So has that been done before?
Yes, it has.
Yeah, for community solar, you can't be over 5 megawatts AC.
But they do have co-located projects,
On the same piece of land?
right? And it has to do with also the permitting process for community solar 5 megawatt AC projects. You're permitting with the local municipality. If you exceed that, then it can be considered utility scale. And then, which I know this town is aware of, it's a whole different animal, and you go through the state level permitting. So we have 2 co-located projects here, but they're both community solar.
What's the current conversation with the West project with respects to tie-in?
We've gone, so we have the whole, everything submitted to the utility. We have the preliminary study. We just are waiting for the final study, which essentially tells us if at this capacity, we're able to do it and the cost for upgrades associated with it. And at which point then
Upgrades to like the substation?
upgrades to the substation, feeder line, anything to the existing utility infrastructure for this project. Whereas for the East project, we have that all nailed down completely. For the West project, we still have a few unknowns, but we're very far in the process. For reference, we submitted to the utility last September.
So
It will need upgrades to tie in West.
Yeah, it's standard. And so does the East project. It just sometimes is unknown well, it's always an unknown because you don't know, you're not sure how much capacity is left. And then there's always upgrades that are put in place, not necessarily upgrades, meaning rebuilding the utility infrastructure to allow for this capacity, but there's different, I should bring an electrical engineer with me, huh? But there's different breakers and things that they go, so to avoid flicker on the line based on what the output is at certain times of days, that type thing.
So this is the first time we've seen 2 projects on one piece of land. I guess I was wondering if the land was bigger, would you put a third project 5 meg? Is that you said there's projects like this in the state. How many 5
I'm sure
meg projects are on one piece of land?
I'm sure other developers have more. We have always had 1 or 2. 2 is our max, no matter what size project there are. It's really typically the constraining factor isn't necessarily the buildable land, it's the utility infrastructure for interconnection. So to have 10 megawatts available is sometimes tricky.
Yeah, then 15 would be even.
Yeah,
That's why I asked. Yes.
yeah.
I have a question. If on the chance that National Grid says no to the
Mhm.
West project, would you still want to continue with just the East one?
Yes, absolutely. Regardless of the West project, we absolutely want to continue with the East project. Our thought process was to be fully transparent and to get seeker executed with the most
Worst case.
conservative constraints and to get that process started, that if the West project gets delayed further or there's questions on the study, we could table the permitting of the West project and proceed with the East. But we should get it back in the next few weeks. So hopefully, ideally, we can proceed with both.
One
No
thing
battery storage associated
No.
with this project.
No battery storage.
Thank you.
One thing I did want to add was, we proposed landscape screening, and my understanding is that I don't believe the landscape screening is required in the code. So this was. Is
On
it-
the contrary.
No.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's in the law, not in the
We're the
code.
toughest
Is it,
town
is it in the
for
zoning
that.
code?
No, it's in the local law.
Oh, it's on the zoning code.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
local solar
Local
law,
law.
it's chapter
The solar law.
71. I believe it's mentioned in there saying that the board
No,
could request it.
There's a,
but
2019, there's a local law number 1 of 2019.
That's what I think she's referring to. But
Right.
I wonder if you dig in the language, if it is just advisory rather than required.
Yeah, I'd like to double check that.
But yet we can still require. it.
So, right, regardless of it
And
being
past
required,
practices have.
we have already included a very dense,
We brought photos in to show you. The point I was gonna make was we're trying to go above and beyond with the landscape screening, but that's way less now if it is required. Yeah, I'll double check that. I'm
Yeah.
curious. But yeah, so there is extensive landscape screening along 310. We brought photo sims, which I can show you. I brought 11 by 17s to give you all now, and I have some I can show. See if there's anything I want to talk about before I.
Are they the same ones that you sent, Mike? via email?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yes.
so we,
the same one.
Yeah.
and then just about the local solar law, we did design these projects while reviewing that local solar law. So it's our understanding that both of these projects are fully compliant with the town code and the local solar energy facility law, with the setbacks, with everything provided in here. On the plan set, we have a table for each project with showing the proposed or the required and proposed setbacks, all of that. And you can speak to that in whatever detail anyone wants.
Let's see. So one thing I want to mention quickly on this is the access road. The town code has a 16-foot max width for the access road. So we're under that, except for along, yeah, the first portion of the road's 20 feet, which the utility likes. You can't really go less than that with utility. After that, it snakes down to 16 feet and 12 feet. So the photo sims, I did email a copy of that. Issue 1, let's start there. So this is, so you can see,
State Street.
yeah, State Street, right? So this is State Street looking, that's looking south or east. Southeast.
West. Oh, yeah.
East.
East that way, that's your east project.
So this is what it currently looks like. Right now, there's about 7 or 8 feet high corn. And then on the left side, if you could see our landscape screening, might be hard to see from there. I can pass out these 11 by 17s, but you see our landscape screening and the panels behind it. So let me pass these out.
Yeah, that one's gonna be, the west project's gonna be tricky to screen because it goes uphill.
You know, when I was just drove by before I pulled in, and actually the corn is so high because the elevation of the road relative to the rest of the property, it was very challenging to see over the corn.
Right,
How high is the corn? Any guesses? 8
that's
feet?
tall.
Yeah, so now the trees that we proposed, you know, they're gonna be set off the road, so that corn's right on the road. The trees will not be, the landscape screen is gonna be set back off the road a little bit.
That'll help.
It will help, yep.
So the other projects, we've always had discussion on, trees, what kind of trees?
Species.
Species, how old are they, how big are they when they're going to plant and that kind of stuff.
So Evan can speak to this species much more eloquently than I. With that said, we have proposed that day 1 installation height will not be saplings. They'll be from 6 to 8 feet, I believe, at day 1 installation. So that day 1, you're already getting natural screening from the planting. And then that'll get better and fuller with time.
Yep, so we did include a plan list. We have registered landscape architects in our office. This was submitted. I can read it off to you all. So we have, white cedars, eastern red cedars, Burkeye eastern red cedars, which is like a smaller species of red cedar, white spruce, Colorado spruce, Canadian hemlock, and then we have evergreen shrubs, inkberry, hollies, deciduous and evergreen shrubs. Blue prince holly, blue princess holly, Brown's yew and Hicks yew. So that list is on landscape plan.
I don't think holly will survive up in the North Country, but
Oh, that's deciduous, so there's evergreen shrubs and then deciduous shrubs as well.
Deer are gonna browse that cedar. up
This.
6 feet.
Yeah, the cedar is not viable.
deer food.
White cedars.
Okay.
What did the other companies agree on? What, there was never a kind of a.
Spruce.
They went with mostly varieties of spruce.
That's definitely something we could pivot to. Our intent with this was to provide multiple different species. So, and have it configured, the configuration of everything so that as different trees grow, it's really dense natural screening and looks pretty. Whatever the town would like is something that we can pivot to.
A resource to consider is the county has a forester who would be to, I'm sure, critique species.
Mhm. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, his name is Aaron Behringer.
What's my last name? Is it
I'm
Aaron
not sure how, it's Aaron is his first name and Behringer is his last name.
or like
B.
A?
BARR.
INGER.
Something like that. I don't actually know. He's
Same
at the Soil and Water Office.
RIN or A?
You meet with the county Thursday, right?
So it might be hard to see from where you are, but yeah, this is existing and this is the 5-year growth. And you can see the panels back there and the trees.
So that's that 5 years time is.
Yep. And location 2 is further south. Here's a site entrance down here. Location 2 is looking see north.
Where's State Street?
Now it's up, it's like up here. Yep, so here's a site access. So yeah, existing, and then this is the landscape screening here and the panels behind it. For 5 years. Three. Location 3 is, now we're further south on 310, and we're looking into the access road. So you can see.
What that opening on the right there is?
Yeah, here's the access road right here.
So there's no intended screening on that section.
In front of here.
Yeah.
It just breaks in the place of the driveway entrance.
But
And
it's
you,
always gonna be that visible in that location.
as currently proposed, yes, it's a little tricky because the way that National Grid specifically works and goes through this process is once you get the approved interconnection study, you make your deposit, you go through the whole process with them. And then once you submit to them that you have all your municipal permit approvals, you're then able to get on site with them and do a utility site plan or and have the poles staked out, have everything staked out. And at that point, will they open the door to the conversation of the specifics of utility pole placement? How close, like, we could provide landscaping to that. So this is pretty conservative, taking that into account. It's a little bit of a chicken and an egg situation. Nexamp has a lot of projects with National Grid, so we've come up with what their standards are. But that's why we don't have anything more proposed here.
This map shows vegetative screening. This one does.
Or at that
That's-
location.
That's the
location
use.
3.
That's the
existing.
existing, that's these trees shown here.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, with
That's a
this, the
driveway
site's
entrance.
already The site's already clear, so we're not clear cutting any trees, nothing like that.
Yeah, there's very minimal, there's a couple small areas of trees that are being removed, but in terms of other solar projects I've been involved with, this is, comes out smelling like roses in terms of trees removed. Typically, it's a lot more, so, the site is generally all clear. The last location we showed, might be hard for you all to see, but this is existing, and then this is from, not sure what this road is.
Judson Street.
Judson Street.
Yep.
So this is looking west into the site, and it'll be, you might not, it's very hard to see from here, but on the hand copies I gave you, you can see panels way out there. Any questions on the photo sims?
The one thing that I noticed, and I can't remember which picture it was on, but the poles that go right from the corner of like State Street and 310, they go kind of up the driveway or right through the middle of that field. It's pretty ugly. I don't know if there's a way to go
Okay.
shorter and directly into the,
It's only a 310. It's not, it doesn't. include
not
up
by
the
the
driveway.
It's at the, it would be the south end of the Hayes property on 310.
oh, okay. It looked like it was right where State Street came off and kind of went up towards the house. And I thought she's not going to want to look at that.
So,
I don't know if I'm not following the
Sure, I follow
question.
either. On the plan set, you can see the overhead view of where the proposed utility poles are. They
Mhm.
go on either side, one for the east, one row for the east project, one row for the west project as required by the, oh, that's
That's
existing.
existing.
Okay,
What,
so there's one for each array.
right,
Yeah, that's
so all
right.
the proposed poles are right here along the entrance. What I think you might be referring to is this line going back into the site over here near the home and barn over here.
Exactly.
That's existing
Yeah.
Okay.
today,
the driveway.
right?
As we review the project, it's actually, I mean, it's nice to see that the interconnection poles go along field edges, obviously in the solar field. as
Mhm.
well.
Yes.
It is, I agree with you, it is unsightly. However, in the code, we do dictate, or we dictate where developers should put that, and it should follow field edges. And fortunately for this location too, there is some existing vegetation, so it will be hidden. However, it's still in the grand scheme unsightly. But then again, if you travel that section of 310, National Grid has existing infrastructure there. That's pretty significant in terms of the electrical stuff. And, the project from Judson Street potentially would tie it across the street. So you'll have definitely some more density of electrical infrastructure at that section of 310.
To speak to that, existing as it is today, there's both the three-phase electrical distributed generation power lines along 310 there, and then there's also a sub-transmission line corridor in that area as well.
Well, you have the tie-in from the Sheasley's project across the road by that church.
Yeah,
Right
this is
across the road. That's
Mhm.
gonna be a tie-in there.
Mhm.
It's poles.
Right.
So we also did receive the ship on no effect letter, so
I forwarded that to them.
okay,
Yeah.
I have hard copies here if you need it. More things to add, so in terms of New York State DEC, we designed this in accordance with the stormwater manual. So right now we have conveyance swales going to dry swales for water quality treatment and RRV. We also have a grass filter strip. The SWIP, we submitted the SWIP as well, so that was done in accordance with DEC. Let's see. So I know this is a pre-app meeting, but can we start the secret process? This is a
No.
30-day lead time.
No.
We can.
We declare lead agency? No?
So when can we start that?
we'll talk about that. The only reason is our engineers that the town has hired are working on, and they'll come back with comments of your project, and
Mhm.
then during that time, the board will look at their comment. I'll send you comments,
Mhm.
then you can, and then our next meeting will.
Initiate the seeker process, or we can't,
We can start the secret process.
okay.
The
and
30-day
there,
window.
the 30-day window will start, that
Yeah.
would be.
Yeah,
So you need to have your
Sent out
comments
mail.
first to get the.
they just,
So, to start the process.
I thought that they could, well, if you declare lead agency, that doesn't mean you have to do a decision just who's lead agent.
but our engineers have just started the process of looking at your plans, and
Who's the engineer?
BNL, Barton Ladudas.
Oh, I know them. So,
Is
That's it.
anybody concerned about the farmland, the fact that this is on farmland? Like the east project's on pretty wet hay ground, but the west project's been corn ground for a long time. I don't know if this is the appropriate time to talk about that, maybe during the seeker, but just wanted to point that out.
Definitely. Yeah, I'd say we're all concerned with that. I don't necessarily speak for everyone. However, it's a permitted use, right? So we only can do so much with regard to that. And the language in our code is only advisory. So there's no teeth to protect the farmland at the county level and at the local level too, unfortunately, and at the state level.
we do have to submit an agricultural NOI, so
Oh,
that gets
that's right.
reviewed. Yeah,
Has an ag data statement been completed?
yes.
Yeah.
That's
That's
submitted.
part of the application.
Yep.
Are there calculations for behind ag versus not behind?
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
and within the
Yeah.
site plan sheet, we provided us, a plan sheet
Yeah.
specific to that, showing the prime farmland
Yeah, that was it.
breakdown
Yeah.
for the local law,
Yeah, so we have,
specifically asked that.
we have a whole sheet that shows that breakdown, yeah.
And then the other thing, since the county hasn't seen it yet either, the county's referring, the county's looking at it Thursday, so they're gonna come back.
Okay,
Yeah, just to make sure everyone's looped in and aware of where we are at with the process, we've submitted to the town planning board and submitted to the county planning board. We're on the county planning board agenda for this upcoming Thursday. In addition to all the submission materials we've provided as part of this application, based on the local solar law for the town of Canton, there's an escrow required. We've provided that in the escrow agreement to the town, which covers the town's expenses for consultants, for legal engineering to review the applications. And that's, I believe, getting approved at tomorrow's or Wednesday's town board meeting, but everything has been provided to the town.
I can confirm that that's all in place.
That's it. I'm a little surprised that we have to wait to get comments to start lead agent process. So that,
That's different than I've seen as
yeah, it
well,
doesn't sound familiar to me. Is that how it's always done? Is that you get comments and then start lead agency?
rather than
We just get to,
declaring lead agency, sending out the mailers, and then starting the
Yeah.
whole review process.
Because the lead agent's not, you're not held to anything. You're just saying who the lead agent is. So in
And
theory, you could have no comments and say the town of Canton is the lead agency, but you still have to make your declaration after that.
well,
So
we
it's
go to,
almost-
Bill and ask Bill, what do you think, Bill?
Our usual process is to engage BNL to do our lead agency letters, to make sure that all the involved and interested agencies get a letter. And that we run through the process through the BNL office. So I think what Mike is saying is that they're engaged, the escrows are funded, ready to go, but not at this meeting. So after this meeting, we'll engage them and we'll put them to work to get the lead agency work started. So is that acceptable?
Yeah, it depends on how long they take.
Always longer than you would like, but not too long.
I'll contact her tomorrow.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, their office is right, very close to mine. Actually interviewed with them a couple of years ago. And who's your contact at Barnley, Judas?
Bailey Kibling. I'll send her your contact.
Okay.
She's out of their Watertown office.
Oh, okay. All right.
Do you have any locations? Does Next Stamp have any locations close to Canton?
Yes, so these two projects are the only Nexamp projects proposed or further along in the process in town of Canton. And then within St. Lawrence County, we do have some projects as well that are one's currently operating and one is fully constructed and to be turned on by the end of the month, waiting on National Grid to do their engineering.
Where are those two located?
I can send along the specific addresses.
Just
Yeah.
Or townships even?
Yeah, Oswegatchie.
Okay.
I was dreading saying that, so nobody.
Well,
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, there's a few in the area.
So next steps would be, B and L is gonna look at the plans. We have the county meeting Thursday. And then we have to wait to get their comments back and then address
We'll
them and
get-
resubmit. Is
Well,
that how that works?
yeah, we'll get the county's referral back
Okay.
probably Friday or Monday.
Right.
And then we'll get B&L's referral in the next week to 10 days.
Okay, so that will be, they'll be able to initiate that process before next month's meeting. Just so everyone's understanding, we're not trying to be pushy to push along the review process. Before you can start the seeker process, the planning board would have to declare lead agency and send out a mailer to the other agencies. So that's what we want to get started, so that once it has been reviewed, we're in a place where we can actually discuss the project and have those conversations and move it forward, rather than waiting on a mailer, which then has a 30 business day response period that we can't do anything for.
Alright, so yeah, and if they take 2 weeks. And then you have to start your 30 days after that, then the next meeting in September is already.
Yeah,
next.
and then we're
So,
month, yeah.
Yeah, but-
Understood.
I'd like to add a comment about the county's 239 review. If there are prime soils involved in either of your parcels, it's quite likely, based on our previous projects, that they will recommend against approving the project because of the presence of prime soils and the county's policy in that regard. So
Mhm.
that would not be a surprise to us. We've seen that on other occasions, solar projects. So that's just an FYI.
I believe down the road, that project was.
There was, so in the code, I did see that removing prime soil was prohibited. So we have a note on the plan that specifically says prime topsoil cannot be removed from the site. So when they strip the topsoil, and they're just gonna strip it in the road footprint.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are pile driven.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like the rest of the.
So really the only disturbance, right, is the road footprint, maybe a little bit beyond that.
In the equipment path.
Yeah, the equipment pad, but the topsoil is gonna be stripped, its own stockpile. And then everything below that's gonna be a separate stockpile. The topsoil is just gonna be spread back out.
But again, it's the road and equipment paths.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any questions? Anything?
I do have one more comment on here, planning board to keep in mind that, we're going through zoning code revision and the new zoning regs that will hopefully be adopted in the next month or two. The zoning districts that cover this particular parcel are scheduled to be changed to residential agriculture. Well, this use will no longer be permitted. So something for us to keep in mind, we have a project right down the road that is, again, is on the village boundary. And we have another significant project on the village of Canton boundary. from my opinion, I think the town and village are on the board side in terms of, they obviously approve our land use regs and making a mistake in terms of permitting these types of uses so close to the village boundary. Just, we're a planning board considering potential future growth and where land is being gobbled up by solar projects, which on the other hand, if looking at those at the viewscape shots, I commonly like to think, what if a commercial property was going in on the Hayes property? And, what would be, it's something that we have to balance, right? Which is not the easiest.
How do those changes impact this application?
So your application is submitted before those zoning regs are adopted, so you fall here. It's existing.
You're lucky they didn't pass it in March when they put it out.
Right.
Yep.
That's all I.
All right.
And I think that's all we have. I did put a few of my business cards there. Please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions, comments.
Wait a minute.
anything.
I have one question. If the east gets approved and the west doesn't, would you still go ahead with the project?
Yeah,
Could we hear from the public if they would like to comment or ask a question?
I think another meeting.
Well, I mean, they're here now. You might want to leave now.
Yeah, I'm taking comment. Well,
Are
procedurally.
we okay?
I'd like the beginning and the end, so.
I would like to agree that that public comment piece, following the town board agenda scope is for beginning and end of meeting, and then each item on the agenda, we as a planning board can decide, like the suggestion that we ask for. If, just want to make sure that's there.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we have a comment on this project from the public. Right now.
And there will be a time in the future that there would be official public comments on this project.
When does the public hearing get scheduled? Official one?
After we start the secret process.
If you have a motion, is there a second?
As an alternate, I can't second. No, right.
So the public can comment at the end of the meeting.
Okay. Thanks,
well,
everyone.
thank you all so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Maybe next time I'll have it working easy.
All right, we'll look forward to that.
Can you feed it into your budget? That's what I want.
We'll try.
I'll get you her contact tomorrow.
Okay, thanks so
All right.
much. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
Mike, you've got next on the agenda scheduling a public hearing for this.
Yeah, but I'm not
We
a
can't do
seeker.
that.
Can't do that. I'm not seeker.
Next item on the agenda is approval of previous meeting minutes. We don't have any from Janet, so we gotta wait on that. And the next item is old business. The resolution approving the alternative entrance to St. Lawrence County, New York State 2 LLC solar project, Solar America LLC. You have we've got the.
Ian, if you'd allow me a comment on this before the board considers it. This is the result of a several month discussion involving the town's highway superintendent, members of the town board, various other parties. Genesis of this is that the site plan that was submitted showed an entrance off the town road. And our highway superintendent felt that that entrance was, I don't want to say unsafe, but less safe than it could be if it was put off of a town road or off a state highway. And we've had a back and forth with this developer for a long time, trying to seek a resolution. So ultimately, the state DOT has indicated that if asked, it would provide a permit to enter the site from the state highway. and the developer has consented to moving the location. So presently, we have an approved site plan, the entrance off of Town Road, off State Street. This resolution would ask you to approve moving the entrance to the state highway. And as the resolution says, it's an alternate to what had been proposed. It does reopen the site plan in a sense. The other various different potential solutions that were discussed, none of them were acceptable to the town highway superintendent, including keeping the State Street entrance and having a management plan for traffic. So I just want to let you know that this is a very longstanding discussion that has produced this potential resolution. And I provide this resolution for you folks to consider with that background. So with that said, that's why we came to this point. It was a difficult issue to resolve. And I believe that this resolution coming off of the state highway is in the town's best interest overall from the perspective of traffic safety.
Thank you, Bill. I'll read the resolution. The resolution number 8 of 2023. Resolution approving alternative entrance to St. Lawrence County, New York S2 LLC solar project of Sol America Energy LLC, dated August 7th, 2023. Whereas Sol America Energy LLC company is developing a 5 megawatt AC solar energy generating project herein the project in the town at 295 New York State Route 310, Canton, New York, and identified it as SBL number 74.004-7-71. And whereas the company has applied for and received a site plan approval and a special use permit directing the company to use the existing driveway access point on State Street for access during the construction, operation, and decommissioning of the project. And whereas the company and the town have agreed that an alternate entrance to the site located at 295 New York State Route 310 in the town of Canton is the preferred entrance as per the advice and consent of the town superintendent of highways, and the company desires to amend its site plan and special use permit applications to implement this change to facilitate the issuance of a permit by the New York State Department of Transportation to enter the site from New York State Route 310. Now therefore be it resolved in accordance with the town of Canton zoning law, the planning board hereby grants the amendment to the site plan approval and special use permit requested by Sol America Energy LLC to change the entrance to the project site from State Street to 295 New York State Route 310. Is there any discussion before we get to the vote?
Can I, my wife just got a call, I gotta go.
Okay,
That's what I'm in business.
okay.
Yeah, Bill, question for you. Does that mean we'll see a new site plan from Sol America for the project?
No, it will not. We are doing this as sort of a streamlined method of approving the change without the presentation of an entirely new site plan. You, of course, have the right to demand a new site plan if you believe that that's a necessary step. There was a fair amount of discussion on this topic. And we are at this point as a result of trying to find a pathway through this that was acceptable to all parties concerned.
What, and when you say all parties, neighboring property owners, are they involved in that all parties definition?
No, they're not.
Well, what's coming to mind as I look at the old site plan is that entrance and the electrical interconnect as well was much closer to State Street. This shifts. Does that, the impact to neighboring property owners could not be ideal. And if them not knowing that beforehand, I don't know, that doesn't seem to be best practice on our end.
Are they changing the entrance or, I mean, the electrical entrance or just the physical entrance?
Yeah, that would be nice to see all of them.
I mean, it's your prerogative to want to see the whole picture. So if it's your view that a new site plan should be presented, then I would communicate that back to the developer.
They've done a ton of work, no doubt. But for them to show the new entrance and whatever else is changing, oh man, planning board members, I'd feel we'd be remiss not to have that. Say if one of us were living next door, our neighbors are there and this changes and they don't know that beforehand, that stuff happens, no doubt. But we don't have to let that happen. Fair point.
I should tell you that the alternative would be no change. We would have an entrance off of State Street, which many folks, including the highway superintendent, has pointedly told me is not a good choice. So, will they do it? My guess is that they will, if we ask them to. I would suggest perhaps we do this. Maybe if we could amend the resolution to say that a new site plan will be presented for your review as a result of this resolution. That work for you?
Is somebody gonna mention it to Joel?
For sure, at the very least, for sure. Yeah, Bill, when you, I don't know. Tell us. If we, is it contingent on that updated site plan review being reviewed by the planning board and then approved? That essentially the resolution is contingent on that. Does that make sense?
I think we can amend the resolution to state that, certainly. That it sounds like we probably should. It's not an unreasonable thing for you to say, I want to see the actual site plan, since that's what you're approving. And we could also require that they notify the neighbor that would be affected. Do that as well. So we can, if you want to make a motion to amend the resolution, now would be the time to do that.
Do you know, Bill, whether this change includes the electrical access or is it strictly for the highway access?
Physical road.
In the discussions that I've had with Soul America, they have mentioned that the access for the electrical would also change.
Yeah, I think we need this.
Yeah, site plan review.
Yeah. So
Amend this to include a new site.
do you contact them to tell them that we want an updated site plan, or is that Mike's job? Mike had to leave.
I will do it. I will do it. And I've had more discussions on this topic than I care to tell you about.
They
must have
the site plan anyways. They've got to update blueprints, so.
Right. And I'll share with you that they did not want to have to come back before the board. But that doesn't mean that they can't submit a site plan. The other thing we can do is to table the resolution pending the receipt of a site plan and your review of it, which is also a reasonable way to go.
That sounds like our best option, Bill. And tell them to get us things as soon as possible, and then we can resolve it.
All right. Is that acceptable to all parties concerned?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Under new business, on his way out, Mike handed me something. A restaurant project at the Fraser Motors site. Do I have any say in this?
Warren, don't you want to?
I want a restaurant in the town of Canton, but I don't want it next door.
Right.
Anyways, it said the letter, it doesn't say who it's from up at the top here. Hi, Mr. McQuaid, I have attached the town planning board application for our project. We're still very early in our planning as we are refining the exact size and details and location of a new building, and won't be meeting with Brooks Washburn until next week. This came in this afternoon, 3:22. But I wanted to get this to you now so we don't miss any deadlines and can keep moving this along. Allow me to give you some background so you can better understand our plans. I own the properties along Route 11 that house both my computers. I guess it's coming from Michael Fraser. That house both my computer software company, Fraser Computing, and the associated used car lot, Fraser Motors. The software company provided computer software to used car dealers, and Fraser Motors was operated as both a test use for our software and a learning experience for my employees. I sold Fraser Computing in 2021, and the new owners have not required anybody to return to the office after COVID, leaving those buildings relatively empty. So to better make use of those Fraser Computing buildings, the hospital is now leasing the space for their administrative people. But the buyers of Fraser Computing did not want to buy Fraser Motors. So I continue to own it since I just didn't want the space to be left empty. It has been marginally successful. I have been working with Les Baker for 20 years since he first came to paint my office above a garage on Court Street. He was the builder of all of my buildings, and my experience with him has been all I could hope for. And then a year ago, he opened Baker's Sizzling Grill in Colton, and it has been magnificently successful. He has a passion for the restaurant business, and it turns out he is remarkably good at it. We both feel that the Canton area is hungering for a comfortable place to have a drink and a small bit or a meal. So we have decided to work together to provide one. Look, here is Les Baker's existing place. He's got a website for bakersizzlinggrill.com. He will continue to own the Colton store as well as this new Canton place. I know nothing about running a restaurant. For me, this is an investment in my property and in the Canton area. I will be financing the project and then will lease the building to Les Baker. To make this happen, we will remove the existing house where Fraser Motors was operated and build the restaurant just behind the existing parking lot. Once the house has been removed, we will square off the parking lot so it can easily handle 70 vehicles. Again, details on the exact parking lot and restaurant building to come. I also own a state-of-the-art automotive mechanic shop located below the hill at the back of the property. I can intend to continue to lease that building out and improve its entranceway currently located on the Canton side of the property. I am happy to discuss this with you or any others at any time. Also, feel free to reach out to Les as we proceed. More details to come. Michael Fraser. And we got the application that he submitted for site plan review and sign. And I'm sure Mike is going to send this out to all of us, since it's hot off the press.
Say, I found myself a little confused. They talked about a new building and he talked about using the existing building that's empty.
There's
Which
three
one?
buildings. There's what was Fraser Computing.
Yeah. I know the two
And
big green ones. I picture those.
That used to be the gas place. And that is being leased by the hospital.
Right.
For office space. And then there's the house that's been Fraser Motors.
Mhm.
That's an old farmhouse
Mhm.
from the 1800s, which they redid. And then down back is the automotive repair shop.
Right. So are they looking to
They are gonna, this says they're gonna tear down the house and put
And
the
build
restaurant.
a new, okay, new building for the restaurant.
Behind the parking lot.
Gotcha.
And then they're gonna, where the house is, it sounds like they're gonna expand the parking lot.
Yeah.
So the parking lot will be out front.
So you wanna offer me $1 million for my place? So I can get out
It'll
of
be
here.
walking distance to the restaurant.
Right.
They go walk over there, get burgers.
Is there any other new business?
Like, on the agenda, future meeting scheduling,
Yes,
so. This item.
at this point, we don't have anything that we need to do outside of the monthly meetings. We might be looking at trying to fit something in at a halfway in between, depending on how fast stuff happens with, the county and B and L for these folks.
Gotcha. And I feel like I've spoken on this in the past. Can be challenging for, speaking of that, but open to put our personal lives in terms of that scheduling piece and just, I'd like to stress more that, it's important for developers to follow our public meeting deadline rather than us scheduling special meetings just for them. Yeah. And I'm kind of on the fence there. I want to stick to that, but also want.
Sorry, I'm not.
That's okay.
Just to confirm, our next meeting is Monday the 2nd.
First Monday, of the month.
First Monday of the month.
Monday, September 2nd.
Or it's at Labor Day.
Second is Saturday.
Are we talking about September? Would be the 4th, would be the first Monday.
So in October, never mind.
So,
I mean, I was like, I scrolled too far.
so the first Monday that's not a holiday
Is the 11th.
is the 11th.
September 11th, there you go. I can't make the 11th.
Does anybody else have a conflict with that besides Eric at this point?
Can you zoom in, Eric? I might be able to, depending on how quiet the kids are.
You'll be home? Oh, okay, so you at least have a chance.
Yeah, I could.
Okay.
View.
Okay.
I can confirm for you, there's another town village committee meeting scheduled here the 11th. The Complete Streets Task Force is always the second Monday of every.
Mm,
How about if we went to the 5th or something like that, the day after Labor Day?
Still unavailable. I mean, consume. Same
Any-
situation. That's good.
Any other opinions?
Could be fine.
Fourth is Labor Day.
Labor Day.
I'm okay with that too, but people, Mike isn't gonna want to have to work on a holiday.
Right.
I'm okay with it.
Fifth,
Mhm.
and you're still in limbo, Eric.
Well, I'm, like I said, I can try to zoom.
Betsy, you'll be back in town at that point,
Oh, yeah, I'll be back next week.
so we're shooting for Tuesday the
Tuesday.
5th.
At 6.
You know of any other conflicts?
I merely read the calendar on. the
Oh,
website.
okay. Okay. We'll run that by Mike, make sure that it works for him too.
Yeah, he's kind of important.
Yeah. So at this point, we want to open it back up for public comment if people have anything further to say.
I do. My name is Susan Huntley and I live on Goodrich Street here in Canton. With the 5 megawatt AC limit for the community category of these arrays, by putting 2 in the same spot, aren't you basically approving a commercial size array?
So it can be co-located. So in order to be a community solar program, it has to be under 5 megawatts.
Mhm.
So it's its own separate thing, even though there's 2 on the same property, they're just. Technically, it's just what the capacity is in the area. So if there was 2 adjacent parcels that were separate, And then they happen to be adjacent, but there's a solar farm on each side. They would still be two community solar farms, just be next to each other, as long as the utility has capacity for it.
We will have to deal with them as two separate projects.
Right, but why, there's a reason why they've limited it to 5 megawatts.
Funding through NYSERDA.
Then, if
Yeah.
the board is okay with me responding to
Yeah.
that, that's a NYSERDA standard, so that developers don't,
Take over too much space.
no, nothing in the town zoning. Says anything about megawatt size, square footage, anything like that, acreage, anything like that. It's all about the zoning of the parcel and the setbacks required. We are fully compliant with all of the town specs within the local law and the zoning code. And we are submitting both projects in parallel to be fully transparent with the town, so that we're not bifurcating anything, any of the processes. But having the two co-located projects is completely in line with the town code as we understand it, and in line with NYSERDA standard as well. We have NYSERDA has approved co-located projects as well. It's all about just the incentive and how the community solar process works, and in terms of the equipment allocated to the community solar projects as you go up the entrance road and everything like that, rather than zoning. If we did want to do a 10 megawatt project, we could just permit it with the state and avoid all the town permitting. So we're doing two separate community solar projects on the same parcel, co-located projects that are compliant with NYSERDA standards, national grid standards, and town zoning.
I just want to urge the board to consider how close these arrays are going to be to the village. I mean, really,
If I
you
can
know?
front that. So as much as we have control of that, what's existing in our land use reg, the town board and the village board adopt that language. That is where the decision-making power happens. And as much as I feel like we were going to recommend that actually to protect the village boundary a bit more, but the new regulations, which are on hold, essentially accomplish that with the new zoning. The solar use, the major solar use is prohibited with, it's essentially a bigger buffer around the village boundary. So there's more protections there, but that obviously their application is in before those land use regs are adopted. And frankly, I think some decision making should have been done on our boards to prevent that in the recent past.
But we, right.
I
those
know
are
you're
sitting at
working
this
with what
table.
you're working with. Yeah,
We don't have that say.
thank you.
Are there any other public?
So application. Anything that's been, the application that's been put in has to be under by its time that it was put in is under the current code, correct? Is that what you just said?
For now, we're talking about no dogs left behind.
Yes, we are.
Right, I know what, that's what you said for the solar project. You're asking for no dogs left behind.
I am asking
Right.
clarification.
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah.
So under the current code,
yes,
under the current code, they're not permitted.
yes.
As a shelter. a kennel.
As a shelter, they're permitted as a kennel. They're not permitted as a shelter or rescue.
Okay, and
Under
they're
the
not a
current-
count. And that was determined by the county.
What was that?
The county determined they were not a kennel. Yes,
Wait,
Well, you
I
can,
thought-
you can call them up and board your dog there.
but their main mission, if you go by use, land
Oh, yeah.
use.
Right.
They
Yeah.
define themselves and they've already been defined by New York
Yes.
State Ag and Markets as a rec.
Yes.
So what's next?
right, story question.
The town's lawyer is talking to their lawyer. And I don't know what's going on.
Okay,
So essentially, the use should cease
Correct.
until they get approved. And I believe a letter was sent to them that they are out of compliance.
and what has the town
The
What?
town has no teeth to enforce.
according to their attorney?
Yeah.
Whoa,
According to which attorney, the town, I'm sorry.
The town of Canton employs Eric
Right,
Gustafson.
Eric, so he's saying that the town doesn't have the teeth.
Correct.
I just I'm sorry, when you said the lawyer, I wasn't sure which.
Yeah,
lawyer
it's
you were
Eric,
talking
it's
about.
Eric Gustafson, who does municipal law for at least a dozen communities. And he's very good.
Well,
so the town law doesn't cover?
Doesn't cover what?
There's consequences for not following the code.
Yeah. I can't answer the number. I can't answer the questions.
And it's delineated in the code.
Yes,
All right, this will be interesting.
you telling me?
Yes. Well, that was my last question at the last meeting. So you're operating outside of
Yes,
permitted use and there is budgets.
yes.
I was just curious, what's the town planning board's vision of reinvestment into the village as opposed to going outside? You don't do that,
We don't deal with the village at all.
or you had a concern about
And that may,
going outside.
Proximity to.
right, and that just may be my personal opinion in terms of town planning board. When I think of the town planning board, I think the
village.
including the village in our thoughts is
Conversation.
critical.
Comprehensive
sure.
plan.
Right, so
Yeah.
is there vision that reinvests into the village?
Yeah, I'd say so in the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of that would be in the village's land use code as well. However, how that falls when development happens within the village boundary is another story.
I agree.
Yeah.
Group that deals with that.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. But I love where you're going, for sure.
This is not easy stuff.
It doesn't sound it.
No.
We earn every dime.
For comment on no dogs left behind and being out of compliance. I would say across the county, it's definitely not out of the ordinary for a use to be, we'll take it as a business, to begin operation without following local land use regs. And commonly, they're out of compliance and then they do what they need to do to come into compliance. It's even though I think.
Why? Why is there a sliding rule? Because if Ag and Markets had ceased their application and not given them a 30-day grace period because they didn't have their I's dotted and their
But
T's,
we
I
have-
know you can't comment on that.
But when you say ag and markets, that's just for the shelter use. If they're operating a kennel, okay, but obviously we know they're out of compliance. The ag and markets piece, I only, I could be wrong, is
You know,
only.
I'm talking about your sliding rule on being able to operate without a permit.
Right,
Why?
right. I would say that's common practice.
Why?
That's the way things are done.
So we're gonna allow that?
I would agree with you. No, we should have strict adherence, no doubt. I
So
totally
why are
agree
there
with you.
laws if nobody follows them?
That is a great question.
I wouldn't do that. I would.
Right, but
So
but
in
that's
your
not to say
state-
maybe you would, and then you get a letter that you're out of compliance, and then you come into
And since I'm a
compliance.
responsible person, I would follow the law.
Yeah,
Yes, but there
love-
should be consequences
There should be-
until they
yeah,
come in.
There should be. a
New York, I worked
consequence.
for New York State Department of Health. I inspected restaurants. They weren't operating until they had everything ready to go.
I agree. I agree. And it seems like from our standpoint to the planning board, we really let that message to the code enforcement officer.
Yes, I hear that message. I've been sitting in on board meetings. This has been very entertaining. However, perhaps if he was being more of an enforcement officer, you wouldn't have people deciding they could build houses without anybody knowing about it. He addressed it in one of the meetings. So I'm saying, if you are stricter, then people will pay attention and
So
perhaps they'll
the-
come in
The
with. and
question
get
is,
permits.
how does Mike enforce this? Does he go out there with the state police and shut them down?
Whatever it takes.
I don't know.
In in the
If that-
code, in terms of no dogs left behind,
That-
it's in the code. He can go in with another person from the, I don't even know if it said from the board, but another person of the town and go in and inspect without there being any building. And he can, yes, cease and desist. It could have been done from day one. He said because they put up a fence and because farmers put up fences, then we're not going to bother with the fence. But it was more than a fence because it was a change in use of the land.
The use
Am I upset?
is,
Yeah.
is the key, and they're out of compliance. And at this point, all I can tell you is our lawyer's working on it, and they're probably gonna sue us. No matter what we do. And there's only so much that the group at this table can do.
There are things that you can do.
No, there isn't.
Yeah, there are, because you can follow your planning board rules. Because there's another form of,
Wait a minute. No, we haven't done it.
Right, but we know, and we know a use is out of compliance in operation. Should a message come from the planning board to the CEO that a cease and desist action.
I'm gonna be talking to Eric Gustafson tomorrow, and
can you tell us what has happened to date in terms of, there were 2 deadlines that passed on that notice of violation?
I don't.
Do you know what was done?
No.
Okay, I want to address something. Can I just step in with information about, you probably know this already, but for Dave, so No Dogs Left Behind was served a notice of violation on May 23rd, 2023 for operation without a special use permit being issued. And it says on the notice of violation, if you have a copy, that it's the recipient's responsibility to arrange for the correction of the above stated violations within 10 days from the date of the notice. And also, that letter, that notice of violation, if you look at the code, was to be delivered to the owner in the last assessment roll. It should never have been delivered to No Dogs Left Behind. It should have gone to Stiles Bridges. There were a lot of errors in there, in that application that Mike did. A lot of errors. In a legal, which you are in now, I don't even think it'll hold up. It's a mess.
Certainly is.
Okay. So I want to address something else, which has to do with the board.
A different
if I
topic.
may. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Okay, because yeah, we're at 3
We're-
minutes.
Well, it's been jumping around.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the first time that I have been involved with local governance. It's been a real education. And it's been neat because it's involved a lot of people and getting to know people in the community. I'm going to be blunt. The present attitude of the chairperson and the code enforcement officer has turned into one of annoyance and dismissal toward public participation. This was not anticipated and seems unwarranted. The open meetings law was designed to facilitate public observance of the workings of government and to prevent the deliberate exclusion of public from being able to observe the governmental process. To local governments, the open meetings law requires that they examine their processes in order to determine whether the public is actually or even perceptually being duly excluded. It is very difficult. It was very difficult to find out if there was a regular meeting being held of the planning board. Everybody we asked, the public hearing is canceled. Meetings scheduled a week or more in advance must be preceded by a posted notice given to the public. and by direct notification given to the news media not less than 72 hours prior to the meeting. That did not happen.
That's part of why it was canceled.
No, it was the 5-day notice to the public hearing. This is a regular meeting. Notice has to be given. I would appreciate knowing where this information was posted. And I guess you know how your website works because it's pretty lousy in terms of finding anything on there. So if you can let me know that that was the case, then that would be of good information. And also, if you're going to vote on a resolution, that information has to be available to the public 24 hours before you do that. So it is essential, it is stated, and this is in conducting public meetings and public hearings, New York State Department of State of Local Government Services. These are the people that train you on the planning board. 4 hours a year. This is where this comes from. Which everything that's in our land use document, all the information that I provided to you in that is information that you should have provided for yourselves. And nobody's acted on it. Nobody cared whether there was a third access onto Route 68 without a permit from the Department of Transportation. And I talked with them and they said the planning board should contact them. Thomas Campo, New York State Department of Transportation Permit Coordinator, Highway 7, Watertown.
Margaret, the access you're bringing, is that in relation to the solar project?
No, it's
No,
it's behind. Put in a third access on their property. Did anyone read this?
Well, the curb cut, I don't know if that needs to come before the planning board. State highway curb cut, we don't approve those. There's, right, there's new construction, then that becomes part of the site plan,
Well, he said it needed to.
come before the planning board.
He said to have the planning board
Compost
call me
and highway department.
about the access, a third access going onto that property.
Right.
Because he looked at the site, two access. He said they have 2, and I said, no, they have 3. And he said that required a permit.
For sure, yeah, that's not necessarily, that falls, the planning board doesn't, permit state highway.
No, they do.
Right, that, so it's not, doesn't generally come under our purview, that would be from the property owner to DOT.
But you're looking at the property, so that's something that should have been addressed with somebody.
Yeah. For sure. With the
Land
with
use,
the DOT.
new land is created by new land use, perhaps. So,
Well-
and then in the last. Anyway, it is essential to the maintenance of a democratic society that the public business be performed in an open and public manner. And there's a lot of information that's going, or appears that's not shared with those of us who are interested in what is going on with this project. And I must admit, it's probably new to you that you've had this much interest in anything happening, apart from the solar,
Solar's been
apart from the solar,
years.
on just a regular use coming in to the county. And it is unique for the county and maybe the state for what the organization's purpose is. So consider, even though the dogs are not your issue, or the welfare of the dogs is not your issue, on the application, Deb Bridges said 60 dogs can be accommodated on that facility. But they're asking for 150 to come in without any expansion whatsoever. And I
believe at the last meeting, they cut that to 75, was it not?
I was there.
No, they did not.
Did they not?
We supposedly have the authority to limit how many they can have there. But at this point, because they're out of compliance, basically, it's being taken away from this board. because it's not our, because they're out of compliance with the current town zoning code. It's not our call at all. And they supposedly would have to apply for a variance from the town zoning board of appeals. On the flip side, if the main town board had passed our new zoning code, the use as a shelter would have been permitted. I remember that.
However,
But at this point, under the existing zoning law, they're out of compliance. And the only way they should be allowed to operate is with a variance from the zoning board of appeals. According to our law. And,
Mike should have known that a long time ago.
and it's been basically any decision that for the moment is taken off and taken away from this board.
We should, with those new regs on pause, we should make a recommendation to the town board for the animal shelter use to have some more, we should consider the language in terms of what's written in those new regs. You can only envision what we're seeing now, of that coming back. So.
That's before the
yes,
committee.
Yes.
I have an objection. Not that it gets put in. But you've got two people on that committee. One is Mike, who is, it's quite obvious, is siding with the applicant. And that is a conflict of interest as far as I'm concerned, and he should recuse himself from that particular part of the code.
What?
We're not involved in the committee makeup of
No,
Mike is.
Some more context there. It's not necessarily common, the town would form a land use committee made up of members from the planning board, town board, and other community members to say, review and use of land use regulations. And sometimes that information, unfortunately, doesn't come back to the planning board, which we all know how local government works sometimes, which is unfortunate. And then it moves to the town board for adoption without the planning board even sometimes seeing. Just, that's the way things happen sometimes. Not to say it's best practice by any means, but going back, I feel we as planning board may want to, we should probably recommend to the town board that they, or to the land use committee that's reviewing the zoning regs now, that they reconsider the language behind that use, the animal shelter in particular.
How is the out of compliance going to go to the Board of Appeals? What's that, how is that gonna work? Do they have it on their desk now in front of them? No. So how's it gonna get to them? The zoning board.
the applicant,
no dog left behind, people would have to apply.
Do they know that? No dogs left behind?
Eric talked to their lawyer last week. But she didn't seem to know much.
Is that Lauren Barrett?
The one in Rochester, yeah.
Well, I'd like to note for the board that Margaret and Kathy and Ruda and Leslie and Mike have done a lot of work on our behalf and on the town's behalf. And they should be given a lot of credit for the time and the work that they've done. And I personally would like to thank them.
One more piece on the shelter use, new regs, how it's proposed to be structured. It moves out of the special permit regulation. So just requiring site plan review, therefore not requiring any public hearing, that particular use. So right now, in the rural zone, which is a majority of the town of Canton, this particular use require, well, it's not, a kennel would require a special use permit. Someone wants to put up a kennel. When new regs are adopted, those uses, kennel, animal shelter, and maybe vet, animal hospitals will move out of the special use permit zone and just requiring site plan review. So if someone wanted to do one of those, all they have to do is submit a site plan review for application. Neighbors do not have to be notified of the public hearing, which I think that might be a mistake.
I asked that, I brought that up before the town board, at the last meeting.
Yep.
And said, kennel before was grandfathered in.
Yep.
But these are new uses that no one's had any experience with in the town, and if they want to protect the town, they want to be looking at how this is going to affect and put it under a special use until it's proven itself. If they want to permit it later, fine, but we're already seeing issues.
Yeah, I emailed the consultant who was doing the work on our land use. And her response, I found it interesting in terms of those uses in the rural zone, moving them out of special permit because the rural zone essentially has less regulation. And that's somewhat logical, but this particular use obviously hot in our community at the moment because of it's a significant impact.
Rylan, there's
That's all I want to share with gratitude.
Anything else?
I just have a question. You were talking about the seeker. I'm sorry, I'm going back to the solar here. You're getting me interested in this. Anyway, did you say that a seeker needs to be done before a public hearing happens?
What do you mean by seeker needs to be done? What do
Do
I
you-
mean?
You do a seeker, the land use, all that kind of stuff, but do you actually have to have that done before the town has its,
No,
Approval?
no,
no, not approval, just the town meeting, the public meeting?
No,
hearing.
Public
no,
hearing.
no, no.
it happens concurrently.
Okay.
Sometimes they happen separate.
Yeah, we've had some where we have the public hearing at one meeting for us. And then the next meeting, we would have the full seeker review. Sometimes with a vote at the end of that, or sometimes we, depending on available time, we would elect to have the vote on a given issue at the next meeting. But the seeker is after the public one.
But then you start, when you say seeker process, there's a whole process, there's a lot of steps. So we requested, the board has to do that declare lead agency. So basically, someone from the town sends out a letter to all the interested parties, New York State DOT.
Prior to the seeker starting.
Yes,
Yeah.
Sign the first step.
Yeah,
That
the
is
first,
one
that
right.
is, yeah.
That initiates it.
Yeah.
When that mailer goes out, in that mailer, it has a certain number of days that those other agencies, whether it's a county, DOT, like you mentioned, agencies like that, have a response period. So because the response period is still open, the board that's lead agency, planning board in this case, can't close out seeker until the notice period has elapsed. So
30
that's
days.
what
Or
we
it
were
includes a
seeing.
lot of other groups. It includes the school district, the fire department, New York State DEC. It's,
Society.
Historical.
yeah.
And also the historical. Army
Corps of
Engineers.
There's a long
They
list.
all have to sign off.
And they all have to sign off on it. They have 30 days to do so. If we don't hear back from them, then we assume that they're okay with the action.
Then the town's the lead agency, then the town planning board, sometimes it's a zoning board, then they would do the determination. But before that, it's usually the public hearing. And then after that, but sometimes it happens, maybe not this town, but I've had it where it happened the same night, public hearing and then the seeker. Every town's different.
Some towns have codes surrounding public hearing.
Yeah.
Right.
Specific to the solar law. So,
And sometimes it's a case of time available on it.
Yeah, the public comment and the seeker are quite lengthy.
Yeah,
So it's a
well-
lot of public comments, so it makes for a long meeting. And in times past, we have held a public comment period and then done the secret next meeting.
Sorry, I just was.
Good question.
I got confused. I'm sorry, you guys.
That's the whole purpose of making the comment.
We got any other business?
I just like to say thank you for letting us. speak.
Well,
Appreciate it.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
that's what I've been wanting to hear from you, Tom. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you, Ian.
Does anyone have the local solar code with them?
No. I don't know.
I did want to.
You were using the chair. I was trying to get out of the chair.
You know what to do, Leon?
Yep.
There were two different haze brothers.
Oh, those are the haze.
And a wife and a sister,
Okay,
all hazes.
got it. So they were, and they were.
Yes.
On the land, okay.
Well,
I just have one-
two of the hazes didn't mention.
No, I'm just, I was looking at quickly.
Down in central New York.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, so I checked.
Where
You are
all
right.
this capacity to go?
Whoa.
That's,
But so I was
That's-
trying to break that. Yeah, I was trying to break it down. It's not in the solar regs. There's a fencing, there's a block of text for fencing.
Yeah.
And that,
Well,
I mean,
but it's-
we
it's
may
just
take some
our
direction from that.
time and our
But I would say the
whatever, so
screen would
something
more
that
so
doesn't
fall
have-
under
They've
site
already-
plan
Yeah,
review.
I know.
They already
That's
got-
where the screen
Well,
language would be. So especially use permit
So what I'm saying is,
required site plan review.
it's gotta
And
be-
then our site plan review criteria,
It-
quite lengthy, and the
capacity
screening is, landscape, or landscaping is mentioned broadly in there. So I think we would interpret there.
Removing
well, we've approved
Um,
some.
a lot of trees and stuff. Removed might be required to be
Yeah.
replaced
Well,
elsewhere.
and then.
But you-
and then the
That's what I
recommendations
had
of the
saw, and then
board,
I also saw
Right,
visual
when
impacts
when
would
we
be
looked over that.
weighed. So for
cap
that reason,
on
we
the
just
amount
went
of
ahead and
acreage
proposed,
that
but I didn't
was
think it was
dedicated
required.
and allowed.
Right, that would, now, two things. So the solar law,
Here is
in addition to the solar law, there is site plan review.
Chapter 70.
Yes, so it's in chapter 7, site plan reviews. For zoning regs, and that would apply.
Chapter 70, there it
I
says
don't,
landscape
I,
screening.
oh, maybe it was, maybe. I
Not
missed it.
required, however, we would use that as a criteria in examining your site plan review in terms of visual impacts. And therefore, the planning board would require, if we
No,
at the
I
meeting
don't
when we're reviewing your site plan review would require vegetation.
But.
However, language isn't specific.
It concentrated in all of it.
Yeah, and more so that critique would come from the county planning board. They would look at your site plan review, and, oh, there's no vegetation at all. You should add screening. And in the town of Canton's site plan review reg says, consider visual impacts and screening would be a good augment of that.
Okay, yeah, I thought we were doing it more as a
So
good
a
faith
good
thing.
shape, yeah.
It seems a little
Would-
ambiguous. though.
And it very well could be enforced. But yeah,
We have it anyway, so.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
and yes, good on you for taking that step.
I don't mind making people make a comment.
All right, thank you for looking into that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, thanks so.
Double detail, huh?
Yes, sir.
What's
That's
the-
a lot of
Thank
detail.
you.
I really appreciate it.
And we need to
Yes.
treat them with respect and allow them to have their